It's April 2019, and somehow we are mere weeks away from playing 3D Mario in VR. We're mere weeks away from playing The Legend of Zelda in VR. It's via a cardboard set of goggles, but Gabe, I am still pretty darn floored that we're going to play the latest entries in Nintendo's two biggest franchises in virtual reality on April 25th.
Nintendo sure knows how to keep fans on their feet, right? Right when we start speculating about a new direct or, what's happening, right? They go and drop this news on a random Thursday night for no reason whatsoever. And I mean, honestly, it's really, really cool. We're going to get into, our, in-depth thoughts here in a minute, but, Zach, if you wake up from a nap or something and it happened, dude. I sent you this and you're like, is that even real? Or whatever you said.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
So is it reputable? I was like, because people talked about like Mario VR for so long. People have, talked about even Switch in VR for so long based on past patents. And obviously now it's become at least a form of that reality given Labo. But we all assumed that it was just going to be Toy-Con this, Toy-Con that, not carried over to the main cartridges. And now here it is. It's happening. Make sure to give us your full take in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you enjoy the video. It does help us out a lot. Now that we've had our initial reactions and that wow moment of like, holy cow, this is actually happening, do you think it's going to be cool? Are you now putting down a Labo VR kit pre-order?
Yeah, and I wasn't before. It's so cheap. It's $40, right? But I have zero interest in like playing like Zelda all the way through in VR. Like I mean, I'm gonna be honest and say that VR is not really even my thing. I don't own PSVR. I don't own an Oculus. I don't own the HTC Vive. Like I don't own any of them. I've never tried it. VR has always been kind of a gimmick to me. I know some people believe it's the future of gaming. I happen to just not be one of those people. But since it's happening with Nintendo and my favorite franchises, I mean, I'll give it a shot. It's so cheap. That's the only reason I'll try it.
Yeah, the floor there is so low. $40. It's less than a game. And you get their, preset VR kit games, and then you can try these bite-sized new little Mario experiences. And the full Zelda, I thought that was interesting. I fully expected, as I saw that trailer, for it to be, a shrine or two or some flyover the land mode. But the fact that it's the full game, to me, is very impressive. Now, we don't know much about how it's all going to work, how it's going to look. I mean, Gabe, we might be throwing up on April 25th. I don't know. The early reports are that Labo VR is pretty cool. I have every major VR set. I've got PSVR, HTC Vive, Oculus Rift. I don't expect it to be as clear or as great as those, but if this can deliver a good Mario Odyssey VR experience and a good Breath of the Wild VR experience, it doesn't change my personal view on VR, which is that it is a gimmick, sort of like you said, and not really the future. But I think it's another just really interesting curveball to add to the list of how this Switch generation has gone thus far, and it really, I think, opens the door for where this generation goes. When we think about what they could do with a Switch Pro, what they could do with a Switch Mini, what else they could do with Labo VR, Nintendo giving VR to Mario Odyssey and Zelda, the sky's the limit, I think, after seeing this.
Skyward? Like a sword? Wait, did you just confirm Skyward Sword VR? Is that what you just did?
Gabe, come on. Doug Bowser's actually me.
Oh, okay. My bad. No, but I mean, you're right. It's really cool to see them, not only continue to support Labo, right? Because Labo is a bit of a niche product, I would say. It's not.
Well, let me ask you that right now. Do you think this is Nintendo's? Do you think one of the main impetuses here is to push Labo towards the core player? Was that the reason for announcing this?
Look, it worked. I think so. Yes, and I think it worked because, I mean, you were already going to get it because you just like everything. Or like owning everything. You don't like everything. You actually like nothing. But
yeah, I definitely don't like everything. I like checking everything out, though.
Yeah. No, but me, I was never going to get Labo VR. Like, honestly, like I built some of the first set that came out and I never touched it again. I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of opportunities to, build with somebody that this would be catered for. So for a 29-year-old male like me, Labo was not my jam. But I gotta try Zelda with it. Like, I have to experience that at least once. But I'm going into it fully knowing that I might only experience it once and then never touch it again like the first kid.
Yeah, I mean, watching Mario in the trailer like run up to the screen, it's pretty cool. Like, I cannot lie. You know, if any of the other headsets had some sort of affiliation or partnership with Nintendo in any capacity, I would be all over checking it out. At least giving it a try. So I absolutely am getting Labo VR. I'll probably get the full kicks. You know, I want to test out all the different experiences. I gotta do the elephant thing, Gabe. That's really where it's at.
Yeah, I don't care. But I'm sorry, I didn't even answer your question. Yes, I think this is to try to wrangle in some of the more hardcore players to get this thing.
Yeah, I really do as well. And I was thinking about, like, you know, Reggie's leaving. Was this one of his last pushes? Or you know, was this the new president's push? Or, you know, how... Obviously, it's not a Doug Bowser thing. We know that. But what was the motive? And where do they plan on going? Because this now opens the door where it's like, oh, does Splatoon and ARMS get a VR update? You know, is there some sort of strange VR update coming to Smash Bros. Ultimate in the future? Is there going to be a VR game, or do we think that this stays localized to their two big guns and they're just doing this to try to add some oomph, you know, and incentivize more sales for Labo VR now that they've invested in the tech?
I think it's the latter thing you just said, because this has been in the works like forever. It's not like this is, I don't think this is like Reggie's like last initiative. We saw these patents a very long time ago. Like, this has obviously been in the cards, and now is the time that they are deciding to put it out for whatever reason. I'm sure they have some of those, but yeah, I don't know that Reggie had anything to do with it specifically, but yeah, I mean, what do they do next? A dedicated VR Nintendo experience with like a franchise of some kind seems like that would just like be a little much, because then you're really like dwindling your audience or your potential audience.
Yeah.
The pool is so small. I mean, unless this thing goes and sells like millions of cardboard, I wasn't call them units, but if you sell millions of Labo VR, then sure, I guess there's gonna be an install base for it. But if, you know, it sells a few 100,000, just like what I'm assuming all the other ones have been selling, then yeah, I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense to dedicate the resources for a brand new game exclusive to that.
I wholeheartedly think you're right. I don't think there is a dedicated VR game. I honestly would not be surprised if this is the end of it. If these two updates are what they have worked out for Labo VR, it's two games that are beloved, two games that have sold insanely well, two games that are years old and that they have invested time and been working on, and you know, this is what they want to do. But I did just have a strange flash forward where it's like, what if there is a world where, because this is only $39.99, like they bundle Labo VR with Switches in the future after, you know, they have their price drop or after they unveil the new model? And what if they do have like insane plans? I don't think they do, if I had to predict, but I feel like they are more and more becoming kind of unpredictable. And there have been a number of events, Gabe, that have just surprised us. You look at like the slate of 2019 and how intense it is. You look at the Metroid Prime delay. You look at the apparent truth to two new Switch models. You look at Labo VR. Again, I go back to the sky is kind of the limit, and what Nintendo decides to do, they are crafty. And that is not a pun.
It is.
They just legit.
It absolutely is. It's not an intentional one.
They just legitimately are surprising in ways that are hard to predict. But I honestly hope that this kind of is the end, because I do not want to see Nintendo, one, divert a good chunk of resources into VR. And I also don't want this to be used as a stopgap, because part of me also feels that this was planned as a way to bridge the gap between Yoshi's Crafted World and Super Mario Maker 2, because there is nothing from Nintendo. And now they are definitely going to generate buzz, definitely going to be on the front pages of Kotaku and GameSpot and Giant Bomb and Reddit with these new impressions and everybody excited and trying out Mario and Zelda in VR.
Zach, I have one question for you. How dare you? How dare you forget about...
That's not a question.
How dare you? Is that a question?
Is it? Like, maybe. Okay.
How dare you?
I don't know the answer. Yeah, okay.
How dare you forget about Box Boy? Is what I'm saying. You say there's nothing between.
Oh, I'm like in the retail capacity.
Okay, all right. I was joking. No, you're right. It's
Box Boy is good.
No, I know. It was a joke, but I mean, you're right. This is maybe a stopgap to try to fill in some love for the Nintendo hardcore. And hey, make no mistake, dude. The hardcore will go back and play like Zelda again.
I feel like Breath of the Wild is the big one here, right? I mean, like the Mario stuff is kind of cool, specifically because it's new challenges or new experiences. It honestly looks very simple, and I'm kind of interested why Mario is getting such a, by their own words, bite-size chunk of VR, and Breath of the Wild is like a full-on thing. Perhaps it's nothing more than just where they invested their resources, but I do feel like Zelda fans are usually such a type of way about the franchise that if you're not playing the first time that Zelda is in VR, like, who are you as a fan?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this is going to make a lot of people drop the 40, because think about other games that do charge for their VR editions. And this is not a separate charge. The charge is just in that you have to buy Labo VR.
I mean, that's smart. And hey, I'm one of those Zelda fans. If this wasn't Zelda, I would dude, I'm not getting Labo VR just to play 5 minutes of Mario. I wouldn't have done it. But since it is Zelda, I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta show some support.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this bolsters Labo VR sales. I'm very curious to see if pre-orders shoot through the roof or if no one cares. You know, it'll be a good read to see what you all think in the comments if you're, going to be getting it, because there's so many people that just wrote Labo off. And I can't say they're not right for doing so, at least with the earlier iteration. Like, it was a fun time to build, but once you get in there, it's like, this is not made for us. Well, now this is probably made for us. And I'm just still surprised, very interested to see how well it works, and then curious to know the future. Definitely let us know your take in the comments down below. Are you going to be picking up Labo VR now? Does it seem like something Nintendo will carry forth? Gabe, is Retro Studios and Nintendo meeting right now to plan Metroid Prime 4 VR?
Don't even try to speak that into existence. I'm very curious to see how this stacks up against Sony, PlayStation VR. I mean, it's probably not going to hold a candle to most of that stuff just because
it's $40.
Yeah, that stuff is way more expensive, and there's actual like hardware and stuff. Like, I'm aware of that. I'm not saying it's going to be anywhere close, but I want to see how much of a discrepancy there is and how much of a downgrade it is. Or I mean, is it still cool? Like, I mean, we'll see.
This is a year where Nintendo is giving us, most likely, a more powerful Switch, a more portable Switch, and a VR goggle version of Mario and Zelda. What other craziness awaits in the coming months? I have no idea how E3 is going to go down, but I am very excited, and I'm very excited to try this out on the 25th. We'll be bringing you coverage as soon as we can. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. And for myself and Gabe and the new world of virtual reality, Cappy, Switch Force, out.